Dolores comes full circle. Maeve recruits Hector to break into hell. And Bernard digs deep to find out who Arnold really is. It's HBO's Westworld, Season 1, Episode 9, The Well-Tempered Clavier. That's a stringed keyboard instrument. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Westworld. So, of course, there are spoilers ahead. You have been warned. And boy, were this week's episode filled with spoilers and reveals and tons of stuff. Really clearing up a lot of confusions, tying up a lot of loose ends for this first season. I think they really were choosing this episode 9 in order to really kind of clarify everything up. We get all of Dolores' arc, answer a lot of her questions there. Who is the Bernard that she's been speaking with? What is memory? What isn't? Is the big timeline theory that's been thrown around out there true? Yes. Okay, so reading Rainbow Bright, Richard, all you guys, you were right. I didn't totally catch on to it. I missed many of those things, or I had questions. They also threw out a few things throughout the series that made you sort of question whether or not that was really true. But of course, out of this episode, really, we clarify everything that's really going on here. So let's start off with the big multiple timeline theory. As many of you know or are aware, many of the theories that's been going on is that this show has been happening in multiple timelines. Basically, the Dolores, William, Logan has been happening in the past, all of their stuff, and then everything else with Maeve and Bernard and Ford and the new narrative is all happening in the, say, present tense with the Man in Black and everything. So we've got two main timelines have been going on throughout this series that they have been sort of interweaving and intermeshing. And there's been a few points, like I said, that have sort of thrown up some confusion. I'll put out my first one right here. So a couple episodes back in Contrapasso, there was the notification that the command center had gotten that a host, Dolores, was outside of her regular field, and they went to send a behavioral. And the next scene that we see is we have Dolores in the old Mexican town where we have an actual staff member come up and try and pull her away. So to me that seemed to coincide that both things were going on at the same time, but as many of the rest of you had pointed out, the changes in the Westworld logo from the old one when Logan and William show up, and you can also see it like in all the subterranean areas, all of the old parts of the park, they have the old logo. Whereas this one, the current logo, has been seen in some of the other scenes when Lee was letting off his new narrative back in episode 2. So there were some hints, there was a lot of things going on, changes in what was happening with the town. So basically that was all true. And we find out, and the big reveal with that, I mean, we got a few things that really pointed that out strongly in this episode. One, when Logan shows William the picture of William's fiancée. That is the same picture that Abernathy then finds all the way back in episode 2 that sort of starts him off in the whole thing and then starts Dolores going on with the whole remembering and that seemed to be blamed on the reveries, but it seemed to have been sparked by this picture. So that's the picture that we found. And then also when they sliced Dolores up in that really nasty scene, it was all mechanical gears. And as has been noted before, originally all of the hosts were purely mechanical with flesh over on top of them. And then for economic purposes, because it was cheaper to make them the new, very much more human way, not sure how that was cheaper, but however the explanation is, that's how all of the new hosts are. So that really showed that since she was still mechanical, that was all happening in the past. So this seems to be that William himself is the Man in Black. That this was the whole story the Man in Black had given last week about his history and marrying his wife and coming back here for 30 years. Well, this is William. Could potentially be Logan, but after William's whole psycho crazy morning massacre that happened with the Confederados, especially with that knife that seems to be the same one the man in black is carrying around, that huge, nasty buck knife. I think that pretty much clears it up. And then also, of course, when Dolores comes back out of the church and she's thinking of William and the door opens up and it's actually the man in black, that seems to link the two of them up. Now, what's been going on for the past 30 years and the man in black coming back to the park, this is probably something that we'll find next week because William and Logan are going off to hunt down Dolores. Where that leads, that's probably going to set things up of why the man in black keeps coming back, or I guess we could probably call him William now, over and over and over again throughout the park. What this little thing has done to him, whether it's made him view the park as kind of evil or just there for him to indulge with, if he did a little insanity snap there when his connection with Dolores sort of got cut by Logan by the realization of how, the difference in with the park. Now, I have to say, I did like that moment between Logan and William and their little togetherness. Like, Logan's really saying, hey, this is our bonding moment. We're brothers. I'm excited about you. You needed to do this. You need to get this off. There was some real honest emotion, and I kind of was liking Logan right there. I was like, okay, so maybe this is a new tomorrow. Maybe this is a new way for them. But obviously the wake-up massacre that he got to with the Confederados all laying bloody and in pieces around him probably points things off in a different direction. Now, as for Dolores, it seems that her current timeline really has sort of been in the wind for these past few episodes. I think her last current one happened when the whole little massacre and things happened at her ranch, and then she ran off. And then from that point, she just fell into a memory state and was remembering all of her interactions with William and Logan way back then. Which is why after she ran away, after getting stabbed and cut open, and she was being chased by the Confederados, when she fell, she woke up, and that was the whole remember bit. And see where she had changed all of her clothes and everything like that. But again, that's kind of irrelevant. I think this is where we're meshing all of these things up. And then, of course, she takes that information and returns back to where it all began, back to the newly uncovered town that Ford had dug up for his new narrative, which seems to be all very similar back to the beginning. We'll touch on that in a minute. But I did enjoy going in, the remembering of the hosts and the bicameral mind, and thinking that your thoughts or the programming is God speaking to you. So I thought it was very interesting, very cool imagery. She walks into the church and sees all of the other hosts kind of having their little godly conversations there amongst the pews. The secret elevator in the confessional, that was beautiful. Very spy-ish, I like that. And then, of course, wandering through, obviously what there is the early laboratory where everything had first started out, and where she's been having the conversations with the Bernard that's been happening this whole time, though, of course, those are all in memory. Now, the realization that she runs into here, that, of course, Arnold is dead, and that she killed Arnold, that I'm kind of curious. Now, Ford did have that one conversation with Dolores where he had remarked that she was the last one that was there when Arnold was around. So I am not sure if Dolores actually physically herself killed Arnold, or if she meant to do it and maybe was directed by Ford. Again, there's a lot of questions going on right there. Or maybe Arnold wanted Dolores to do it. I don't know. That's one more thing that's going to have to come on. I'm not sure if it's quite as literal as just Dolores killing him, or again, if she did, we need to find out what the reasoning behind that is. And I think that's something else that we'll start in maybe next episode before they wrap things up, or likely maybe it will go on until next, and that'll be one of those big floating mysteries out there. But of course, the episode opens up with that nice little moment between Maeve and Bernard. Here we are thinking that Maeve's in serious trouble, but luckily it's Bernard that is interviewing her, and Maeve remembers Bernard as a host. And I love that whole scene, was so beautifully done. I mean, honestly, even the first shot is Bernard walks in and Maeve just does the little eye bit over in his direction, like just take a quick look and coming back. That was perfect. And then as she just turns it around, you can see her thinking and all of the, she knows the programming, she understands all of that there, so she knows how to answer him. What that was nicely done. And then turning it around on him and freezing him and kind of facing him with his own reality that he is in fact a host, I thought was beautiful. Bernard's reaction, really stuttering, really reaching to try and grasp that reality, I think was beautifully done and wonderfully handled. Now for Maeve, this really sets up her new kind of philosophy in freeing the host and taking her, I don't know if to say life back, just taking her life in her own hands, is she's giving the host a choice. That's what she did with Bernard, which I thought was really nice, is saying, you can do this is your choice. And then finally her encounter with Hector, I thought was also beautifully done, just letting him know the reality of his world and saying, hey, she knows the command. She can change him and make him do whatever that she wants. But as she says, that's what they have been doing to us. So instead, just opens his eyes to his reality, that everybody was programmed to act a certain way, and it doesn't matter because the safe was empty. There was nothing you were going for. So that really brings Hector into her fold. I just like the idea of her using choice for the host as a different way of doing things and kind of opening things up, really marking a difference between her and their human controllers. And as for Bernard himself, great detective work, Bernard. Loved you digging in to your history, loved bringing Ford. I had to say, I was kind of curious, like, why are you asking Ford to help you, knowing what Ford can do? But I also love Bernard's idea of bringing in Clementine. And poor Clementine, there was nothing wrong with her. She was just an unfortunate victim in all of this. She was made reprogrammed in order to give that false narrative to make the park look dangerous. So I thought it was kind of nice to bring her back and give her an opportunity to really make a big change. Unfortunately, as it all plays out, Ford was definitely in command. He is definitely the god in this world. And the idea that he uses Bernard's old self and knowledge to come up with new ideas to affect the hosts, and then Ford reprograms all that back into Bernard. I thought it was beautiful, definitely very twisted in its own way. And some great camera shots down there also. I mean, just really wonderful presentation of the scene. The reality of it all being, in some ways, it doesn't matter because Bernard's dead by the end of it all. But I did like the idea that this has happened before several times, and maybe at this point this is just Ford saying that enough is enough. But the real reveal with all of that is, of course, that Bernard is Arnold, or more precisely, Bernard is modeled after Arnold. That's what Arnold looks like, which is, Arnold's been having those conversations with Dolores, but of course that he's dead. So just sort of a great reveal, great little moment of Bernard as a host facing his own artificialness and moving beyond and moving past it. I thought all of those were really well presented. But then again, as it ends up, Ford's the one in charge. Ford has all of the keys to all of the doors, and unfortunately, this might be the last that we see of Bernard, or Arnold, as it were. And of course, just a couple of small things. One, Man in Black, part of the board of the big company that is running the park right now, has been helping keep, has been the person responsible for keeping the park funded and basically all of those away from Sweetwater, expensive but not used a whole lot of ideas, funded and everything like this. So a lot of backstory learned up on the Man in Black, his connection with Charlotte, that he is on the board, that he's behind all of this. Really just sort of clarifies everything, but of course Will and Logan were there to look into the park and probably buy it and take it over, so this is now the end result of years of doing that. So that was some very cool clarification just right there. And Elsie, we still don't know what's happened to Elsie. In Bernard's flashbacks, it did seems that he killed Elsie, but we didn't see her kill Elsie. And I'm finding that unless you see these things happen, drawing conclusions often will lead you in the wrong direction. All that we saw was Bernard holding her by the neck and seeing himself in the mirror. We didn't hear like the snap of neck or anything like that. Most likely Elsie is gone, and that could be her body that maybe Ford is recreating, maybe in a way to take over Bernard now that Bernard is dead. Now he'll use Elsie as a host to kind of take over that position. Could be the case. Why is Stubbs, though, out in the middle of nowhere? What was the transponder that had been found? Or maybe Elsie had gotten away. Maybe Bernard let her go and she's been hiding out here trying to figure things out. Again, these are things that we don't know, but the fact that Stubbs is out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by a ghost nation that is not obeying verbal commands, things are about to get a little more complicated out there, I think. Oh, and poor Teddy. Teddy appears to have done that whole massacre that happened in the very beginning. Some of the flashbacks of Dolores, where we got to see the blonde down there yelling up. What seemed to be originally in his memory is the massacre that Wyatt did of all of the soldiers seems to have actually been Teddy as the sheriff massacring the whole town. Maybe that was the first accident that happened way back then in the park and made things adjust. Maybe that's why the town got buried as a way of sort of wiping that out. Again, may find out maybe next week. I think this is all going to tie into the whole new narrative thing that Ford has been building. All of the narrative stuff that Ford has been starting seems to have been all reflective back to this original town and some of the early days. So I'm still thinking sort of what I mentioned the other day is that I think that the new narrative is in a way sort of Ford's swan song, his way of sort of wrapping up the park, maybe ending things back in beginnings. That seems to be the idea. But that's what I think we're going to get next week. I think next week's episode, it'll tie up a few more lines, but really we are going to be establishing the new narrative, and that is going to be setting things up for season 2. So I think they use 9 to clarify a bunch of stuff, and then 10 may clarify a few other things, but really start to set all of the seeds, all of the little bases for the next season to come. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap things up for this week. Now, next week is the big season finale, final episode. We've got a lot of stuff. We're going to have to tie up some more ends. We're going to have the whole narrative laid out, set things up for the next season. Plus, we got to find out, is Maeve going to be successful in her little escape attempt? And what is the whole thing with the maze? We still need some clarification with that, so hopefully we will get that next week. So, if you did enjoy this review, go ahead and hit that like button. I would really appreciate that. Ideas, thoughts, comments, go ahead, little I told you so's, because I wasn't with all of you on the whole thing. You can throw those down in the comments section below. I love all the conversations we're having. Really means a lot to me and helps sort of open all of these ideas. I think they're awesome, so throw those down. Now, you can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes right there, but you can always come back for all our reviews by hitting that subscribe button right here. It's a little picture of me. Go ahead and click that. And up here, I'm just going to leave whatever our latest reviews are, and you go ahead and click that, check that out. Other than that, I'm going to say goodbye. I will see you guys next week. So, I am D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.